My name is Brian Cox. This is December 28th, 2013. It's taken me a little bit of time to process and I guess get some messages, clarification on one night recently that I called it a travel initially, then I was told a spiritual experience. As I've talked about it to others and so on, it's a lot of people call it a near-death experience, out-of-body experience. All I can say is it's my experience. This was in October, about 10 days after, 12 days after I had a major surgery, and it's taken some time to get a little courage to put this together as well. It's changed my life dramatically in my belief on the afterlife. I always had a belief in God and Jesus, and used to go to church as a kid. As an adult, I haven't been to church until about 2 years ago. And what got me to there, basically, is the last about 6 years. I've been dealing 7 years. I've been dealing with a couple of changes medically or physically, and I noticed some changes. Went in, got some blood work done, and so on, and found out some thyroid situation going on. Got some thyroid medicine. Everything seemed to be cool. But I also noticed that I was having some issues. Now, a lot of people know me, or that do know me, know that I have an attitude. I've always had an attitude. I won't take anything from anybody. I stay on my ground. You try and violate my civil rights, which you'll find out here in a little bit. It is a no-no. I'm a down-to-earth person. Just don't upset me. Well, I had noticed that I had been getting upset quite a bit, and I was more short-tempered than I had ever been before. And in doing so, I decided to try and go get some other help. I picked up the phone. I called for psycho or psychics or whatever. Try to get some anger management help. Set up an appointment, went in, spoke to actually I was directed to two different people. One being a psychiatrist, one being a psychologist, one that prescribes medicine, one that doesn't. Went in and saw the one that doesn't. Everything was good. Sit down and a visitation. Then I saw the one that prescribes medication. Well, the one that prescribes medication, in about 10 minutes time period, after talking with me, decided that he'd go ahead and put me on some psycho drugs. Now, I've already been seeing some doctors for feet, podiatrists, and nerve doctors, in which I have neuropathies and neuromas in my feet. The neuropathy is not from diabetes; it's idiopathic, which they don't know what it's from. The neuromas are the end of the nerves endings in the feet that are inflamed and actually balled up, or big knots, and they're very painful. So I've been to different doctors there. I've had x-rays and so on, nerve tests, and I've got the medical results and so on. They've been put me on different kinds of drugs, narcotics, NSAIDs, psychotic drugs that they're using now and finding that helps alleviate nerve pains. So I've tried these things. I got on them, didn't really care for them, didn't like the way they felt, especially the narcotics. I'm not into the pills. So I wound up going to psycho doctors. Well, the psycho doctor prescribes me some medication, and it's pretty heavy stuff. Something that goes up, something that goes down, or 4 different drugs. I've got them, but I don't take them. We'll see. So I'm doing this for a while, and the medications are getting heavier. The dosages are getting heavier. It's just the medications. They started giving me antidepressant drugs. I started realizing that I was getting more depressed, or I was getting depressed, but it just didn't. The things weren't doing what I was expecting them to do. But I was giving them a time period to try this and see what's happening here. After a couple of years, I'm realizing this stuff isn't working, folks. These psycho drugs that they were putting me on, number one, there are no tests for them. Period. No tests at all. So they just start throwing different drugs at you. Well, I became more depressed. If I had one of my high-performance motorcycles, I probably would have slammed one into a concrete barrier at 150, 160 miles an hour, easily. I had thought about driving a car into a guardrail, the end of a guardrail, as fast as I can. This wasn't good, folks. I began getting so depressed, I didn't do anything. I had no motivation. I had no more will to live. I had already been dealing with not only the thyroid, but an issue with pancreatitis and diverticulitis I got on December in 2007. And the diverticulitis, it just got worse throughout the years here. On August 11th of 2011, after being on these drugs, my wife had just gotten me started going to a doctor of Oriental medicine, an acupuncturist. He began working with me, different areas of my body, and on August the 11th, 2011, I wound up, well, actually the 10th, I had an anxiety attack. Now, this anxiety attack became an issue from somebody moving dogs, a dog, which wound up attacking me and my dogs when I would walk my dogs. That's a whole different story. But I wound up having an anxiety attack on the 10th when I was in the police station talking with the police chief. The next day I walked that same area, and again, here's this dog attacking me and my dogs. Long story short, I wound up having another anxiety attack. I wound up on the ground, on all fours. I felt like I got hit in the chest like playing football and somebody knocked the wind out of me, but it was 100 times worse. I didn't know what was going on. I was found by the fire chief, and then he left me. And then animal control officer and UPS driver found me, got me some medical attention, suggested I go to the hospital. Later that day, I did go to the hospital. Everybody thought I was having a heart attack. Wound up being an anxiety attack. I called the psycho doctor, and he prescribed me some other pills, which anti-anxiety pills. So now he's got me going up, he's got me going down, he's got me going everywhere. That day, I was on the ground. While I was on the ground, and I was sucking for air, I could not get a breath of air. I thought that was it. All of a sudden, something appeared in front of me. This white cloud-looking thing is all I can say. Now it was either an angel or Jesus Christ standing over me. This was about 8 to 10 feet tall, and I heard the words say to me, "Get off those drugs. Get off the drugs. Thyroid. Thyroid." I later wound up at the hospital, emergency room. I was released starting that day in 2011. There was a change. I immediately did what this voice said to me. I stopped those drugs. It upset all my doctors. It upset my wife. I then looked for another endocrinologist, and I got back on the thyroid medicine, started looking at getting that taken care of again. In the meantime, that was in September. In the meantime, my doctor of Oriental medicine stated to me that I had typical signs of Hashimoto's thyroiditis. So he ordered some blood work, and long and behold, my antibodies test for the Hashimoto's thyroiditis was over the max on the charts, on the test chart for both. Full-blown thyroiditis, Hashimoto's. Okay, so I go to my endocrinologist, and I ask him about it. First thing he tells me is I've got a psycho problem. He doesn't believe me, but yet I bring him the paperwork, the test results, and I show him. And he says there's something else wrong. He says you need to go see a psycho. I'm like, no, I just stopped the psycho drugs because they were killing me. He then wrote a prescription for T3. T4 is your Synthroid or your levothyroxine. T3 is the other aspect of the hormones for your thyroid. I won't go through that. I had on my test results T3, and my T3 was fine. So now I'm getting a doctor prescribing me something that I don't even need, and I even have the test results that shows it. I stopped going to him. 3 months after the 8/11, and I saw this vision on the 13th of December. I'm sorry, November. 13th of November, 2 months after. September, October, November. No, 3 months. November 11th or 13th, I went in. That was 2 months to the day after my birthday. I went into a church and asked God for my forgiveness. I asked God and Jesus Christ to come into my life, to be my Savior, to be my Lord. That I'm at my wit's end. I'm at rock bottom. These drugs are killing me. I've got medical stuff that's going on, and it's just making things worse. We can't get things figured out, why things are happening. So now I'm November 13th, go to the church. 2 weeks later to the day, I went in and was baptized. 3 days after Thanksgiving. I asked Jesus to come into my life. I'm tired of what was going on. Not only was the medical, the physical things going on, there was issues going on with as soon as we moved into this house, the house had fraud and forgery all over it. The next door neighbor began harassing me because I did things that he didn't like put up security lights, security camera, and so on. He called the police. The police would side with him. They began harassing me. So now I've got the medical issues, the house issues, and the police issues. I turned my life over to Jesus. And for the next year, it just seemed like my life got worse. Worse in the regards of the police issues going on around here, the harassment. There was dog issues. People have loose dogs and they wouldn't do anything about it. The police wouldn't do anything. If and when they did, they would just write a ticket or a summons to court. People go to court, nothing would happen. This is a whole issue. This police issue thing with the harassment, you wouldn't believe. I'm not even going into it on this. I'm at the point of right now I almost died. In more aspects than one. I began having these diverticulitis attacks early this year, in which 3 of them I wound up at my primary doctor, and he'd give me pain pills, antibiotics for the infection, and send me on my way. He told me the 4th time, go into the hospital. 4th time, my wife dropped me off at the hospital emergency room on her way to work. I was in so much pain. I was at the point of I couldn't go to the bathroom, or when I did, it was just diarrhea. That's after I was able to get any food down. Most of the time, it would just come back up. So I go to the emergency room. I already know what the problem is. I've already had, over 6 years, the 2 colonoscopies and some other tests, the CAT scans and so on. Emergency decides to admit me. I get admitted. I spend a day there. Nothing happens. I am in so much pain. They've pumped me up or shot me with morphine, which I don't like, and it gave me some migraine headache that I have never had before. I've never had a migraine. I thought I was going to die. My head was going to explode. I had that going on. I had my gut problem going on. I wanted to die. There was a situation in the hospital that I won't get into, but let's just say I got out of there. For the next 4 months, basically, I fought to try and get into a doctor, a surgeon, to find somebody that would cut this problem out of my gut. In the meantime, my doctor of Oriental medicine, my acupuncturist, also noticed some funny numbers on my test results by accident. I had just had another set of tests ran by my primary, when a week later, my doctor of Oriental medicine asked for some other test results, and were actually, some of them were the same. And in doing so, he noticed a huge difference in some of the numbers. Now, that day that I went to go get that test done, I noticed that I monitor my blood sugar because of the foot thing, and I noticed that my blood sugar skyrocketed. So I called him and asked him if I should go get a test done and see what's going on. So he said, sure. Well, like I said, he found this complete, huge number change in the antibodies and the thyroid tests and so on with the blood work. So it was just by accident that this happened. Well, since then, we've also noticed that my blood pressure and heart rate skyrocket at the same time period when these things are going up. We're not sure quite what it is. My wife and I thought it was the Hashimoto's attacks. Well, now I'm being seen for something else as well. But I had been tested for leukemia. We ran through cancer tumor of the pituitary. Now I just had our test run for cancer or tumors on the can't think of it right now, but anyway. So I still got some issues going on with something that's not quite right with the blood work. We know that I am full blown with Hashimoto's. So all this time period, the last 2 years, I've been reading the Bible. I was going to church. For the last year, I stopped due to the fact of the police issues in the local connections and so on. We won't go there. So I kept staying focused with my own study, with reading the Bible and some other books, reading online, getting some of these Facebook things, just so many different things. And in doing so, I noticed that I was getting these messages, these patterns of messages, these messages that would come in different waves, in different formats. And so I started picking this up and realizing what was going on. These were like signs. These were messages. These were messages from Jesus, from God. Things I had to do, things I wasn't supposed to do. There was things there that I didn't want to do, but it was very adamant. I was very adamant. We had some discussions, some argument, I guess, you know. Do you argue with God? Do you argue with Jesus? You make your point. You at least let them know. He has the final say. So the next 2 years, it's been up and down, very up and down. There's been so many issues that's gone on with the police, with the harassment. I got a story. One of the police officers, even 6 days, he prank phone called me. It began the day after we buried my father-in-law. This is all documented, folks. It's all documented. And then it stepped up getting worse. It went into the magistrate courts, and there was some misproprieties of positions, and we won't go any farther there. The point is that anytime I turned around to try and get help, make complaints or whatever, things seemed to get worse for me, and I was the problem. Even though I didn't have the loose running dogs. I'm not the one that was harassing people. I'm not the one that was going out making threats. Yes, I had somebody making threats to shoot me and kill me. They even came to my house, and yet the police turned the report around and made me the suspect rather than the victim. Well, that was the final straw. That was earlier this year, 2013. That was in February. Actually, 29th of January. I won't go into everything on this video. It has been a living hell living in this house. We've now been here for 4 years. 3 years and 2 months, it's been nothing but hell here. You know the cliche, you have to go through hell to get to heaven. This is about as real as it gets. Sorry about this, I keep losing my glasses there. I had written something, and I don't have it on me here, but I had written something earlier this year after the situation at the hospital, in which it was a message, or messages, series of messages, in which I was told I was going to die from a heart attack. I've always thought in my lifetime that it was going to be from a head-on collision, or car wreck or something, motorcycle wreck. That was my livelihood. It was mechanic work. So earlier this year, I've had 3 diverticulitis attacks. The 4th one I go to emergency. The hospital does nothing. I'm in major pain. The next 3-4 months, I'm trying to find me some doctor, surgeon to get me this thing cut out of me. In the meantime, I'm finding out that this diverticulitis, doctors don't usually perform the surgery unless you have a colon or large intestine blowout. Then you become septic, then it becomes extremely serious. I didn't want that. I wanted this thing fixed before that. But I couldn't find anyone here in Albuquerque to do this. I finally did. And I thank you, God, that I did. Because I had been at a point of everything that I ate came right back up. If anything was able to sneak by me, it created so much pain in my abdomen. I finally convinced the surgeon to do this. October 4th, I went in and had surgery done. Come to find out, the surgeon went in to take this foot of colon out, large intestine, got in there and found that the colon had begun to attach itself to other organs in the entire area in my abdomen. He had to cut it away from everything else before he could actually take it out and lay it on a table. They analyze what's bad, they cut off the bad, and then they attempt to reattach. My colon had gotten to a point of, it was also had attached or collapsed or something itself on itself, and had closed off on the inside as well. So I was not passing anything, and if I was lucky, it was just water, that basically pure diarrhea. I know. I've lost about 55 pounds. I wasn't able to eat. Constant pain. I don't do well with the pain pills. Part of the reason with pain pills and any pills, they seem to a lot of times work opposite on me. So I try and stay away from pills. So I go into the hospital. I get this cut out. I guess I'm there for maybe 2 days, I understand, for my wife, in a room that is near some construction work going on, in which the exhaust was pumping into the room I was at. And besides that, the amount of pounding and banging that was going on, I never saw heard of any of it. Well, about 2 days after, my wife couldn't understand. Knowing me, she figured I'd be raising all kinds of heck. I did get to a point where I couldn't, the exhaust got to me. So I requested a new room. I wound up going out into the hallway and laying on the floor until they got me a new room. I couldn't stand it that bad. My wife was sitting there on a chair with me, and we were near the elevators. And I remember looking over and sensing something, but I couldn't remember. And then a little bit later, we wound up, I had a room. I got into the room. And I was there for another 5-6 days, I guess. And this whole time, I don't remember hardly anything. They had me on major pain medicine. They had me on something to relax me or put me to sleep at night. Everything seemed to be fine. I had little issues at first with some digestion and just keeping water down and thinking I had gallbladder or something else going on. Appendix. But I didn't. Things calmed down. Everything started working, and was getting ready to leave the hospital. This is a week after my surgery. And that night, I noticed I couldn't sleep. The nurse had come in and given me the sleep medicine at night. I remember looking at her. Well, I remember looking the other direction from the opening, and I was staring out the window. But looking back and seeing her come in, and she came in, did my vitals and so on, gave me my medicine. And I just laid there the whole night. She came in about 5-6 hours later, and I was still wide awake. And I told her, I says, none of that medicine worked. It didn't put me to sleep. And she was a little concerned about it. My blood pressure was sky high, 190 plus over 110 or something. Very concerned about it. And I don't remember anything. And this is going to get really weird here, folks. Somewhere along the line, about in the early morning hours, 6, 7 o'clock, I guess, 8 o'clock maybe, I had gotten up out of bed. I'd put clothes on. I was freaking everybody out because I told them to come and take the IV out of my arm, that I was leaving the hospital. And somewhere in there, I called my wife and told her to come get me, to take me to the train station. And these are things I've learned and being told after the facts. There's some of this, very little I remember. Things that are in and out. So I grab my suitcase and I take off. I left my computer and electronics. I had my cell phone. No wallet, no money. I go out of the hospital. My wife shows up. I throw the luggage in the car and take off. Have her drop me off at the Attorney General's office in reference to this police harassment stuff. And I go in, and apparently I went in and talked to somebody in there and left, and then walked to the train station. I got to the train station, and I guess I inquired about a ticket, because I remember telling my wife I need some money for a ticket to go to California. Well, I do remember being inside the train station, and somewhere I asked about the train that's out there, Amtrak, and they said it was going east. It goes through Denver, but it was going to Chicago. Or I could wait until 4 o'clock or something and go west to LA. I remember going outside, And then I remember my wife showing up, and I remember throwing my cell phone in the car. And then I turned around. She says I walked off, but I disappeared. I don't remember what happened. But I do remember looking back, and there's the train, looking at the train. Now, while I'm standing at that station outside, I finally realize I'm at the train station in Albuquerque. And I'm like, what in the world? And then I felt something, and I felt it very strongly. It was like a black energy. I could see this. It was like this energy, this blackness. It jumped out of me and got on that train. And at that point, all of a sudden I realized where I was. I was in kind of shock about where I was, because I knew I was supposed to be in the hospital. I knew that I'm standing there, and I felt this energy just leave me, and it went on that train. I could feel it. I could see it get on that train. It went through the train, into the train, not just into it. It went through it. Yeah, this is very freaky. All of a sudden, it started to, the wind picked up, and it started getting really cold, and it started sprinkling. My wife is gone. I'm standing in the middle of Albuquerque at the train station with a suitcase of dirty underwear and socks and a long sleeve t-shirt and pair of jeans. I don't have a cell phone. So I walked up to the hospital. Not knowing what all happened. I got to the hospital, and they told me that my computer and stuff is downstairs, that I'm not welcome at the hospital. Excuse me. So I called my wife to come pick me up. She was almost home, 35 miles away. She came and picked me up. I felt like it was the worst day of my life. I had the best thing going for me. The hospital took care of this thing that was killing me. And it literally almost killed me. The physical aspect. And that physical aspect was brought on by me not letting things go, number one. And building up all this stuff with everything going on. It became something very serious and very physical. And it almost killed me. And here I go screwing up. I called the hospital, and they didn't want to hear about it. I'm trying to apologize to them. They didn't want to hear about it. About 3 days at home. I am freezing the entire time. I cannot warm up. I'm putting thermals on. I'm putting sweats on top of those, doubling my socks. I cannot warm up. My wife works at a job where she works overnight, and she had to go to work. I'm home alone with the 3 dogs, and I'm freezing. I cannot warm up. I go lay down. The dogs jump into the bed, which is normal. The 3 dogs jump into the bed. Now, I usually sleep in my skivvies, maybe a t-shirt, on top of the blankets and the covers. And I put an Afghan on top of me. Well, I've been sleeping under the covers. I've had to put 2 blankets on top of what was already there, one of them being a down blanket, and it still wasn't warming me up. Well, this third night, I think it was the third night I was home. No drugs, no pills. I crawl into bed, I'm trying to go to sleep, and I'm trying to warm up. Well, I guess I fall asleep. I fall asleep, and the first thing I realize is I'm in a dream, but I'm like I'm traveling through space. But it's different. I've never seen this before. It's a blackness. It's a solid blackness. And I'm just kind of trying to figure out what's going on. And in the very far distance, I see this very distant light, a glow. And it kind of got bright and dim, bright and dim, bright and dim. Okay, so I feel like I'm in this flight, in this space. There's no stars around me. It's not any kind of a tunnel or anything that I feel like. It's just a space. It's just, I'm out there. Like I said, there's no stars. So, all I can sense is that I'm just flying, but I don't know what's going on, so I'm kind of in a state of awe or shock. Probably more shock. I don't know how long this took, but I could tell it took a little while, or it felt like it did. But as I was getting closer to this light in this distance, I could tell the light was wide and not like a single light. It was completely wide to me. And looking at it, it wasn't flickering in the sense of like a flame up and down, but it was kind of like a glow in and out, a brighter dimness type of thing. And I noticed that the color was, it was a gold color, but it wasn't gold like we know it, like I've seen it. It wasn't like a gold like you wear on your finger, or gold color in paint, or this was a different, a luminescent type of a brightness, of a lightness. So I'm focused looking at this going, okay, what is going on here? And I'm going closer and closer, I can tell. And it's not a slow travel. This is a very fast travel. As I'm getting closer, I'm noticing these things coming at me. And I'm like coming at this head on. And these lights or what have you is coming at me. And I'm running into them. And they're hitting me in the head and the shoulders and like absorbing into my body. So now my focus is on what this is. So, you know, I'm starting to look at this and I'm getting this understanding of this is information. This is stuff I'm supposed to know or learn. This is like the ones and zeros you see for computers, where it's just flying. That's what it was more energy, but it was like that. So I'm flying, I get these things coming at me, absorbing into me. I'm trying to understand what's going on. I'm starting to realize that this is information, okay? And I'm like, okay. And I'm getting closer and closer. This light is getting brighter and brighter and bigger and bigger. This goldness. As I'm getting closer, I'm starting to realize there's something that surrounds this golden light. So I'm getting these things coming, this energy, this information coming at me. I'm looking ahead and I'm seeing this bright light getting bigger. And now I'm starting to see this thing around this bright light. And what it looks like is a snow globe, a crystal ball, a crystal globe. And this light emanating from inside it. Not all the way across, just maybe it was probably half the distance, the diameter, but it was in the center. It was centered. So I'm like, okay, what are we looking at here? And then I'm starting to realize as I'm getting closer, and this is a long distance, but it's getting closer, or I'm getting closer. I'm starting to see on the outskirts of this globe these bright looking lights like stars. And from a distance, it's like stars. Thousands of these stars. And now it's starting to look more like if I walk outside and look up in the sky on a clear night and see every star there is, because there's no light or even around where I'm standing or the next 20 or 30 miles from me. That's what this is looking like, and I'm getting closer, and all of this is starting to, the shock is wearing down some, but the awe is increasing. I felt no pain, and I am in major pain, with my feet especially. At this time, the gut thing, it is cut out, but I still feel the surgery pain. But it's nothing Nothing like it was prior. I'm getting closer to this globe, and I'm starting to slow down that speed and as I was traveling faster or closer to it, though that information was coming at me faster and faster, more and more. As I got closer to the globe, and I was floating there, I was stopped. But I was close enough to see what I was looking at. And from where I traveled to where I was, it was an extremely long distance. Where I'm at now to where this globe is, it's right there in front of me, people. It's almost close enough to reach, but you couldn't. And I'm looking at these stars. These stars are not like stars you see up in the sky that are different sizes, and they dim in and out, or different colors, smaller or bigger, what have you. These stars that were on this outskirts of this globe were like a crystallized looking a glass, a crystal, a diamond, but it had this pearl essence to it. And I'm telling you, these colors, I've seen lights. I work with electrical and lights. I have never seen anything like this color, like the lights, or this whiteness, or this shimmering, this crystal globe. It was so pure looking. It was so unbelievable. And I remember, okay, getting through the shock part and more fully into the awe part, and I'm realizing I don't feel any pain. I feel joy. I feel comfort. To understand this, you had to be there. But what happened is just so unbelievable. I'm floating there. I'm now realizing that I'm looking at the kingdom of God. I'm looking at heaven. I then began to communicate with God, with Jesus, but a communication began. I wanted to go in there. I wanted to go in there so bad. It was so beautiful. It was so unbelievable. But I was told I couldn't. At least 3 times, flat out. It's not your turn. I had something I had to do. And I'm telling you, this conversation is as clear as you listening to me right here. There were no words per se like I'm speaking. It was a communication. You see, I've got 3,000 pages of documents that I've put together with the audio, video, you name it, on the police harassment for the 3.5 years, or a little over 3 years, here in this city. After the December, January thing with the police here and the escalation of their little harassment and their practice, and I said enough is enough, and my faith was strong enough that I was given messages that it's over. That harassment stuff is over. I did what I was supposed to do there. I then put together those documents for the next 5 months. I made 4 copies of them. It took me till the time I went to surgery, just before I finished. Well, during my travel, the first thing that I was told is, which is what I thought I was going to do, is sue the city and the state. I was told, no, you're not going to sue anybody. What you need to do is learn to forgive. I need to learn to forgive others. I need to ask forgiveness for the things that I've done to others as well. Jesus forgives us. We also have to forgive ourselves. But mine is just not to say, I forgive. I was specifically given instructions on what I am to do. There's a number of things, 3 primary things, and the number 1 thing is to learn forgiveness. And in doing so, I also have to go out and teach it, preach it, share it, talk about it, write about it, do a video. I don't know. I'm still getting messages on that and getting clarification. The one thing that I figured in forgiving others, and that I've been reading, is you forgive small, you forgive close, such as your family. No, I was told I start with the police department and the city. And I go to all of the officials throughout the years that I've been to or through to get help, and the people that are supposed to help and did some very wrongdoing things, rather than sue anyone, my duty is to bring to light all of the wrongdoing. from the local police department all the way up to the state police department, to the FBI, to the governor's office. All I'm supposed to do is give them this information. Because in learning forgiveness, I have to let this stuff go and not dwell on it. No matter how bad the situations were with the police, I was to forgive them, and forgive them first. You expect the police to serve and protect the public. The police in this country are out of hand. They're warmongers. Many do not know the laws, and many do not know civil rights. They do not know the Bill of Rights, and they violate those. And they severely violated my rights. But I was told that, like it says in the Bible, let it go. God will take care of it. Let everything go. God will take care of it. And in my 52 plus years, I've always stood my ground and never backed down. But you know what? I am learning humility. I am learning forgiveness. You know, I know people will ask me, how can you forgive those that did that, what they did to you? How can Jesus forgive you for everything that you've done against him, against God? And does, no matter what it is. So I'm working on number 1, and that's the forgiveness. Number 2 is the anger issue, which I initially went to psycho doctors for. And along the path, getting off those psycho drugs where there's no diagnosis for, no tests for, only observation by a person or persons, in which they now have a medical condition for every human emotion, and with that they have a drug to go with it, thanks to your pharmaceutical manufacturers. The anger issue winds up being low red blood count and low testosterone count. We've also seen since my surgery, where the foot of colon was taken out, that all of my organs on my left side of my body, my pancreas, my, I don't know what all's there, liver, spleen, all of those have calmed down. Those were so inflamed, including my liver was extremely inflamed, that what it had done is that heat usually goes to your feet. My feet were red. My feet were not even red. My feet were red. Red like that. Let's put it up right there for you. They were red. A week and a half after my surgery, I went to my doctor of Oriental Medicine, and he looked at me. He couldn't believe what he saw. He noticed that all my organs were calmed down. The heat in that was being generated by my liver had decreased. My feet, the burning, it felt like they were on fire. The fire was gone. The redness in my feet were gone. I still have the neuromas and neuropathy and so on, but this burning feeling like I was walking on hot coals or in a flame, it was gone. That colon did wonders. So I'm on my travel. I'm sitting here. I'm having conversation with God, with Jesus. I'm being told what I have to do to get in there. I wanted to so bad. I didn't want to come back. Not to what I was going through. I was done. I was ready to give up. The testosterone count, the red blood counts are going up due to the fact that my body's not having to fight off anything, and that it's not needing the red blood count. I won't go into all that. I'm healing. I'm getting better. I feel better. That was October 12, 13. I seem to slowly start recuperating. I'm able to start eating some things. Then about 3 days prior to Halloween, start feeling a little lightheaded, a little bit of chest pain. Thinking, okay, it's maybe something I ate. It go away. Well, on the morning of Halloween, about 2:30 in the morning, again I was freezing, but I was in bed. I was laying on my left side, and noticed I had a little bit of slight chest pain, so I rolled over to my right. And as soon as I rolled over to my right, that chest pain increased. The chest pain increased like you wouldn't believe. Got out of bed, wound up going to the living room. I wound up on all fours, sweating. Felt like I had to go to the bathroom. I went in, got sick, diarrhea, throwing up. My wife saw me, and immediately gave me 2 aspirin. She said, "Looks like you're having a heart attack." Got me into the car and took me to the hospital. I got up there, and I only remember going inside, getting on a chair, starting to get sick, and they rolled me right into emergency, and they had me on the table, and all I remember is pain from one end to the other in my chest. Unbelievable pain. 2 things I remember is, one is the guy grabbing the paddles, and the other thing is I remember the doctor going, "You're having a heart attack, and this is what we're going to do. And I remember saying, don't tell me what you're going to do, just do it. That was on Halloween morning. I had 100% blockage in one of my main arteries, the one going out of my heart, feeding my body. I currently have a 60% blockage going to my heart. I never had high blood pressure before. Never had problems before. But as I understand, most people don't anyway. So with that said, and the surgery, my medical things are looking way up. I'm healing like you wouldn't believe. I thank God, I thank Jesus Christ for leading me, for directing me, for healing me. I know that night on my spiritual experience, the third thing that was on that is the fact that I have to make a video. And that's what I'm doing. I have to share what happened for many different reasons. Doesn't matter what you think. Doesn't matter what others think. I know what happened. It happened to me. I know there's people that can relate, as I have put some of this on the internet, Facebook and so on, and had responses about confirmations of other out-of-body, near-death experiences, what have you. God gave me another chance. Jesus Christ is my Savior. He is the way to heaven. I'm not perfect. I know that on that experience and the conversation that I'll be getting more clarifications as things go on. All of that was information that was being absorbed into me, I guess you could say. They'll be coming to relevance. Some of it already I understand. A lot of it is still there, but I can see where some of it's coming up as it's going along, as things happen. All I know is I have to be very open to these messages. I know that I have learned that a lot of that information that was being pumped into me is actually verses out of the Bible. I do know that. There's so much more that I do know that is coming to me, that I also have seen some things that is unbelievable. Right now, my main message and my focus is forgiveness. And as I understand, that's the only way for me to get into that heaven. I know we have to believe and forgive, and that's what we're told to get into heaven. I didn't question what I was told. What I saw and what I felt and what I experienced was very real. And whatever one thinks and what they may say, that's your opinion. I know what I saw. I experienced this as more real than real itself in the physical aspects of Earth. And one thing I was told is everything on Earth, all of this, everything physical does not matter. It has no relevance. The only thing that matters is what's from the heart and how we treat other people. So if there's bad from the heart and you treat people bad, that's what you'll be judged on. If there's good from the heart and good to people, that's what you're going to be judged on. The main thing I've learned is that forgiveness is the main thing for me. We had some, sorry about that. We had some communication back and forth. I questioned, but I didn't question. I questioned for clarification, not for question of why. And my wife can verify I'm not the one that is easily told what to do and go off and do it. But who's to argue with God? Who's to argue with Jesus Christ? Not me. So I'm supposed to share my experience with you. I was given another life. I was told to go in and enjoy it. I was told to go have fun, to live it up. I was told this because I was faithful. I've been faithful for the 2 years. I'll be honest. I've gotten depressed. I've wavered. I'm human. I've made mistakes. But I've kept my faith. And I feel like if I keep my faith in my promise, that the promise that was shown to me will be there for me. And it is there for me. It's there for you too. I saw what I believe is the kingdom of heaven, the kingdom of God. And those stars, those brilliant, bright, shining, shimmering, crystal, pure diamond stars, those are our friends and family. You can see why I wanted to stay. I did not get the glimpse on the inside, like many have. I saw what I saw from the outside. But it was so beautiful. Forgive others. That's what God wants. That's the only way Jesus Christ is going to let you get to heaven. You need to forgive others. And the key is, it's all love. It's all about loving everyone. Just like the Bible states, love thy neighbor as thy would yourself. Hope to see you in heaven.